In this current world, a drastic mutation is occurring on the moon, leading to a dramatic increase in temperature exceeding 100 degrees. As a result, the surface has become dangerously hot, causing power plants to explode and making it impossible to withstand being outside for more than 20 seconds without fainting. The extreme heat has even made the asphalt scorching to the touch, posing a serious risk to anyone who comes in contact with it. With the entire population confined to their homes due to these hazardous conditions, essential supplies have become scarce. The protagonist, along with his girlfriend, managed to survive for a period of 5 years with limited supplies. However, when their resources started to dwindle, his girlfriend took drastic measures and sent someone to eliminate him before they ran out completely. Now, he finds himself 5 years in the past, reliving the events that led to his near demise. Before the events unfolded, he possessed the unique talent of stockpiling vast amounts of food and resources. In this lifetime, he managed to amass a staggering 3 billion resources, with a determination to assert his dominance over all others. However, in the present moment, our protagonist finds himself on a bus, surrounded by passengers, engaged in a conversation about the recent earthquake that struck Mount Fuji, claiming the lives of numerous individuals and prompting the evacuation of their city. The girl in the snug pink outfit mentioned that they had to make a swift exit, preventing her from stocking up on supplies. The man next to her added that the disappearance of supplies from neighboring cities was shrouded in mystery. Similarly, the guy with the shaved head recounted similar incidents at Donan Lake in Xiangan City and at the Dahunan warehouse. It seemed like a strange phenomenon was occurring, causing a shortage of supplies in various locations. The girl expressed fear as she pondered the immense value of the situation, believing it to be worth billions. However, our protagonist intervened, revealing that it was actually worth trillions. The disappearance of supplies and numerous natural disasters indicated that something sinister was afoot, prompting the need to remain vigilant. The girl questioned if it was the end of the world, to which the man in the green shirt expressed excitement at the prospect of equality for all. Our protagonist, drawing from his past experiences as a delivery man, believed that inequality would persist even in the face of an apocalypse. He recalled a time when the Earth was engulfed in heat waves and seismic activity, causing creatures from the depths to emerge. The world completely transformed overnight, ushering in a new era of scarcity where even basic items like instant noodles were incredibly valuable. In this new society, a single sausage could buy favors and people had abandoned their previous way of life. Despite everything he had experienced, he found himself starting anew a month before the chaos began. A girl in a pink dress approached him, seeking comfort as she expressed her fear. He brushed her off, prioritizing the search for essential supplies in this apocalyptic world. In his previous life, he had dedicated all his time to finding resources, and he knew that would be crucial once again. He is a diligent worker at Walmart, always planning ahead. When his boss informs him of a salary cut, he accepts it with grace, despite the fact that the boss had abandoned the store in the first apocalypse, taking all the supplies. In a twist of irony, he decides to take what he deserves by using his unique ability to access a spatial space that can hold massive amounts of supplies. He effortlessly gathers resources from nearby areas, including water from lakes and supplies from doomed cities. With the ability to freeze time in this space, he ensures that all the food remains fresh for whenever he needs it. Finally, he can enjoy a satisfying meal after all his hard work. The system displays the amount of resources obtained during this activation, and he feels ready after acquiring so much. At that moment, 3 colleagues enter the warehouse, which is now empty. They question what happened, and our protagonist confesses that he took everything. The boss is amazed at how he managed to do it and instructs the others to apprehend him. However, as they approach, he mysteriously takes a step back and vanishes into thin air. The 2 colleagues are left bewildered, trying to figure out where he went, while he reappears outside using his second ability, spatial jump. With this power, he can teleport up to 3 meters away, making it easier for him to gather supplies and escape unnoticed. Tossing his uniform in the air, he declares his collection complete. Suddenly, he receives a warning message on his phone from the authorities about strange movements on Earth and the possibility of a disaster. Despite the caution advised, he remains calm and composed. The system displays the amount of resources obtained during this activation, and he feels ready after acquiring so much. Our hero finds this amusing since nothing has really initiated yet, and they're already saying this doesn't mean they somehow know the future. In that moment, he received a call from his girlfriend, Jang Shuken, and he let out a sigh before answering. She scolded him, questioning how he could have the audacity to put their house up for sale. She expressed her doubts about staying with him if he went through with selling the house, emphasizing the importance of responsibility as a man. Despite not wanting the house herself, she reminded him that as a woman she needed to feel secure. She urged him to prove his manhood by transferring the house ownership to her. Our protagonist asked if she had anything else to say, to which she responded that if he handed over the house, she would give him another chance. However, if he refused, she made it clear that marriage was out of the question. Suchin ended the call without a word, reflecting on the sacrifices he had made during the last 5 years of the apocalypse. He had risked his life every day to forage for supplies to feed her, and had even brought her to a safe zone. Despite his efforts, he remembered a time when he was attacked upon returning home, simply because he hadn't gathered enough supplies. It made him question if she truly appreciated all that he had done for her. After Suchin was killed, they celebrated and had a good time around his body. Yang cautioned the man atop her that Suchin's death was a result of his incompetence and lack of usefulness. It is important for this individual to demonstrate that he is not as incapable as previously thought. Suchan was heartbroken to realize that he had placed his trust in someone unworthy for an extended period of time. However, in this lifetime, Zhang and Wang will face the consequences for their actions, and they will not escape easily. The suffering Suchin experienced will be multiplied, as they will feel the pain 100-fold. As he walks down the street, he reflects on the realization that the items he currently desires cannot be purchased at the market. They can only be obtained with money. The thought propels him to take action, leading him to contact a man named Liu. He informs Liu that he is willing to sell his house at a discounted price, but with one stipulation: he requires the money immediately, right in front of the real estate agency. This decision marks the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one filled with uncertainty and the potential for great rewards. The individual reflects on his current situation and realizes that the items he requires are not readily available in the market, necessitating the use of money for their acquisition. To obtain the necessary funds, he contacts a person named Liu and offers to sell his house at a discounted price, with the condition that the payment be made immediately in the presence of a real estate agent. Zhang and Wang confront him upon his arrival, with Zhang expressing her displeasure at being kept waiting. Despite her reprimand, he disregards her and continues walking past. Wang questions him about his unauthorized sale of a house and warns him of severe consequences if he repeats such actions in the future. As Zhang and Wang wait for him, Zhang berates him for making her wait, but he brushes her off and walks by. Wang questions who allowed him to sell his house and warns that if he repeats his actions, he won't live to see another sunrise. In that instant, Suchan, who had honed his fighting skills through survival, seized Wang by the neck and forcefully brought him to the ground, asserting his dominance over his possessions. Startled by Suchan's aggression, Wang retaliated by attempting to overpower him and claim ownership of his belongings. Zhang is frightened by the situation, attempting to intervene but receiving a slap that sends her tumbling to the ground. Wang pleads for release, but Suchan reassures him that he won't die easily before letting him go. As Suchan walks into the real estate agency, Jang warns him to seize the opportunity she's offering, to apologize and kneel before her if he wants a chance at marrying her. Otherwise, he can forget about it. Suchan gazes back and watches the two individuals flee in terror into the authentic. At the estate agency, the attendant offers Suchan some water and tells him they will buy his house now for a lower price than it's worth. Suchan understands the simple plan. They will buy his house for less than its value and then sell it for a profit. Suchan agrees to sell, but only if he receives full payment immediately. The man agrees to transfer the payment and assures Suchan that everything will be sorted out by the next morning. Suchan agrees, knowing that the value of houses will decrease as disasters continue to happen. He walked down the street and saw a poster advertising quick loans. He decided to go there with his house certificate. Upon arrival, he was shocked to see it was the older brother of the man who just got beaten by him a moment ago. Knowing this man would die in the jaws of a monster within days, the man said he could lend him $500,000 if he left the house certificate. Suchan handed over the certificate, saying he wanted another $100,000 and promised to win it all back at the casino in a week. The lender liked hearing this and thought the kid must be one of those gamblers who would sell even their relatives if necessary. This way, he wouldn't be able to pay back the loan. They would keep the house, and he would still have a lot of debt. With that, the lender agreed, and another $600,000 was transferred. Jang stood furious, eyes burning. Wong muttered he'd make him pay. They were headed to Wong's brother's place. Just then, Suchan appeared from that direction. Wong's fingers twitched around his neck, fear tightening his grip. But instead of confronting him, they chose to follow. Suchan remembers the tsunamis will bring many buildings down. But this hotel in the Green City stands strong. It has weathered every disaster. He knows the presidential suite is well equipped, even has a pool. Perhaps it's a good place to stay for now. Even at the end of times, this place held food for a long while. He walked into the room and was greeted by the attendant, Luke Sinu, who asked what she could do for him. Suchan said he needed 1,000 tables for a banquet. She was taken aback, offering some table options while thinking this young man must be the son of someone very wealthy. He said he wanted the tables that cost $10,000 each and would make a deposit of $500,000 now, with the rest to be paid later. She was a bit skeptical, but told him to follow her to make the payment. She figured that anyone who could easily part with $500,000 surely had more to spend, so it was best to assist him. As they entered the room, she asked if he was getting married. He confirmed and said everything was for a wedding, and he also wanted the presidential suite. Sometime later, he left the hotel feeling very pleased. He spent over $10 million on food, putting down an advance deposit of $500,000. The rest didn't matter because when the apocalypse came, the ice blocks he had would be worth billions. As he walked away, she thought whoever married him would be a very lucky girl. Just then, Jang appeared and asked what was going on. The attendant inquired who she was, and she replied that she was Suchan's girlfriend. The attendant then mentioned that her boyfriend had ordered a banquet for over 1,000 people and paid $500,000 for it. She remarked that Suchan's girlfriend was very fortunate to have a boyfriend like him. However, the attendant couldn't help but think that the girl was, at best, a 7, though she did have a good figure. She wondered why rich men always went for women like her. Jang and Wong were stunned by the idea of a $10 million banquet. The attendant confirmed it, adding that many wealthy people do this. They get into relationships and hide their wealth until the day of the wedding. Wang wants to become a mountaineer and venture into the mountains, but she slaps him, thinking she must create as many opportunities as possible to stay with that loser. She imagines herself as a wealthy lady in a chair, being pampered. Her eyes sparkle. She never imagined this scenario. She will definitely have to marry Suchan, the loser, and that's too good to be true. Suchan sat, tallying the numbers. $700,000 for the house, $600,000 for the loan, another $500,000 for the banquet. Now, with his name on the brink of ruin, more loans seemed a small price to pay. He installed the banking apps on his phone and began the process again. 80 accounts later, he had secured another $970,000. He needed a fireplace, an ice-making machine, ice blocks, smokeless charcoal, and a few other items that were nowhere to be found in the markets. With the money in hand, online orders with fast delivery were easy. These things were essential for surviving the extreme cold and heat. He placed an order for 2,000 tons of smokeless charcoal and called the ice factory to make a reservation. As he walked down the street, a girl called out to him. She was a friend of Zhang's and said Zhang missed him. Suchin knew this girl was trouble, always speaking ill of him to everyone. "Miss me?" he thought. "She must miss my house." Lena looked at Zhang and said Suchin must be testing her. She needed to understand how sad he was about her behavior. Zhang rushed to Suchin, embarrassed, and asked if she could walk with him. She wasn't feeling well and regretted their fight yesterday. Suchin ignored her and told her to walk alone. Zhang, losing her temper, accused him of being arrogant. Lena suggested they follow him and see what he was up to as he got into a taxi. Suchan arrived at the ice factory. The man who greeted him was surprised by Suchan's youth. Suchan inquired if the 2,000 tons of edible ice were ready. The attendant assured him that while their service wasn't cheap, they guaranteed swift delivery. All that was needed was a small deposit. Suchan transferred 100,000 to him, and the seller promised delivery in 3 days. The attendant, curious, asked why Suchin needed so much ice. Was he planning an event? He suggested they might work together in the future and assured him the price was negotiable. Suchin replied it was for a charity event and left. Just then, another taxi arrived. The seller looked hopeful, but it was Zhang, wanting to know what the previous visitor was up to. She asked because he was her boyfriend. The seller was puzzled. Was this girl playing detective? What was happening here? He said he ordered 800,000 in ice. Both were stunned. 800,000 in ice. It was true. He was a millionaire to do something like that. Lena asked if he mentioned what he planned to do with it. The seller thought and recalled. He said he would donate it to charity. Both felt a chill, not understanding why. The scene shifted to one of the city's fanciest restaurants. In his previous life, he had never enjoyed anything. Everything had been destroyed, and even a simple coffee was a luxury. He looked at the menu. Everything was expensive. On the last page, something cost 17,000 with a question mark. He asked what it was. The attendant said it was a special item made by their chef. Suchan said it sounded good and placed the order. He recalled his past life when creatures mutated. Folks thought it was some kind of biological shift, but to him, it was just creatures adapting to the new world. Then a girl with pink hair appeared to deliver his order. She was marvelous and introduced herself as the chef of the place. Suchan recognized her as Chef Duanya. During the apocalypse, she became known as Hell's Chef, with a magical culinary ability to turn corpses into edible things. In a world plagued by scarcity, no one could resist the temptation. Yet, dishes made from mutated creatures often led to death. Seeing his wary expression, she wondered if he thought a beautiful girl like her would poison his food. She told him the dish was called Two-Faced Life. It was a meat dish, prepared differently on each side. Suchan tasted it and said it was worth $177,000, thinking how nice it would be to have her cook at home. Lena, outside, mentioned hearing that broom was really expensive. Yang said she couldn't wait to be a rich wife. So, Suchan decided to visit one of the city's priciest bars, knowing he wouldn't be able to soon. He sat down, and a group of girls surrounded him, asking what he wanted to drink. He started drinking with them. Looking to the side, he saw a girl sitting there. Her friend said she was there because her boyfriend had betrayed her, and she wanted to have fun. The girl said her boyfriend hadn't even slept with her but cheated with an older woman. She wondered why all men acted that way. Suchan said it was because the instinct to reproduce was ingrained in men's DNA and minds. Suddenly, she downed her drink and asked if he was single. She approached and asked if he was interested. At that moment, Jong and Lena entered the bar, looking for him. They spotted him at a table in the corner with the three girls. Suchan told her they could go up to a room, and she seemed to agree, so the two rushed off. The desire between them was strong. Kin and Lena shouted at him to stop, but the two ran to the room, entered, and closed the door. He apologized to her for those two, and the girl timidly said it was her first time. Suchan felt awkward and flicked her forehead, saying she must be drunk to do something like that. He told her not to leave the house for the next few days and to stock up on food. She said she understood. Then he said a girl like her shouldn't be in a place like this. With that, he closed the door and left, thinking it was a shame, but he wouldn't be able to seize this opportunity with Lena and Yang around. But he slips away with ease. The next day, he takes delivery of all the trucks, from ice and charcoal to banquet supplies. Lang stands in the crowd, puzzled, questioning why Suchan rented such a vast warehouse just to stockpile so much. Yang, too, is bewildered, unsure of his role. At that moment, Lena points out that the banquet crew from the Green City Hotel has arrived. They are laying out carpets and arranging tables with care. Could it be that a crowd will gather suddenly, and he will declare his love and propose? Yang's feeling flustered, insists that even if he proposes, she will still consider his sincerity. They decide to confront him. She approaches Suchan and asks why he is purchasing so much. Suchan said he'd explain later, but asked if she could help him organize everything. Jang felt afraid, thinking he was a jerk for making a girl, soon to be rich, do such hard work. Lena chimed in, suggesting it might be a test to see if she was fit to be wealthy. At that, Jong's demeanor changed. She wasn't a weak woman. She could be delicate, but she knew how to work. She started carrying the boxes, seething inside, vowing that Suchan would pay once she was rich. Just then, Lena attempted to seduce Suchan, offering to help carry the boxes. In her mind, she thought a rich man like him wouldn't have just one woman. If she showed what she had to offer, she might enjoy some benefits. Meanwhile, Suchan thought he couldn't afford to lose free labor, especially with all the ice and tables to set up. After some time, they finally finished. Jang was drenched in sweat, her legs trembling. She'd been hauling stuff since morning. She muttered that once she married him, she'd make sure to take all his money. Lena lay on the ground, exhausted, cursing the man who made them lug those heavy ice boxes. Yang said this had to end now. He needed to propose and start the party before the guests arrived. Lena agreed, urging him to hurry because the food was getting cold. Meanwhile, Suchan handed out extra cash to the delivery guys, who thanked him earnestly. Yang approached Suchan and asked if he had something to say. Suchan thanked her for her help, but said there was no payment for them, so they could leave. Yang, stunned, pleaded with him to stop joking, pointing out that the guests were arriving and there were 1,000 tables to serve. She demanded he reveal his intention to marry her so they could start their life together. Suchan looked back and said it was impossible for him. He had already sold the house and amassed a mountain of debts. Surely they wanted to marry him. Lena said it didn't make sense. How could someone with no money buy so much ice? Suchan explained he was only doing it to help his wealthy boss, who had a charity project in mind. Jang's temper flared. She attacked him, accusing him of lying all along. He stood firm, saying he hadn't lied. She collapsed to the ground, a monstrous look on her face, calling him a poor loser, unworthy of marrying her. Suchan said he wasn't interested, and she stormed off, calling him a bastard and promising he'd regret it. After they both left, Suchan thought they'd regret it once the apocalypse began. He closed the warehouse door, preparing to store everything in his space. With that, All was finally ready. Back at the hotel with Dahai, the man he owed money to, Wang pulled Jang aside. He told her not to waste her time on Suchin anymore and to stick with him instead. She was gnashing her teeth, talking about how she couldn't wait for his performance that night. Wang, ever calm, told her not to worry. He'd ask his brother to handle the situation. Jang began to think maybe Wang wasn't so bad after all. With an influential brother, he was certainly better than that loser. Suddenly, Suchan commented on how she seemed desperate for any man's attention. She jumped, caught off guard, and demanded to know what he was doing there. Wang pointed at Suchan and told his brother that this was the guy who had hit him. Dahai looked surprised and said he hadn't expected to see this particular guy. Wang asked if he knew him, and Dahai explained that the kid had borrowed 600,000 from him and needed to repay it by tomorrow. Wang found it perfect. They could resolve both issues at once. Jang, now pleased, said she had finally gotten rid of a loser, especially one who owed money to the brother. Suchin says you can't get a decent meal in that place. Dahai reminds him that the payment is due tomorrow. He wonders why Suchin is acting like everything's fine here. Wang shouts at his brother not to even talk to Suchin, since he hit him. Sinu appears and asks what's going on and if they can resolve it. Dahai says if she makes that kid kneel and apologize, they can let it slide for today. She then asks Suchin what's happening. He says it's just some pests bothering him. Dahai bangs on the table and says he was only calm because the payment is due tomorrow. A guy with a goatee asks what's going on and who let Suchin cause trouble. Suchin and Dahai recognize him as Ji Kang. Dahai starts apologizing and asks what Kang is doing here. Kang says he has important matters to discuss and it's not for Suchin to cause trouble. Dahai knows Kang is an entrepreneur but is involved in various underworld activities. He commands many. It's unwise to cross him. He apologizes, saying he'll return later. Suchin knows him as Skull Crusher. In the apocalypse, he rose to power, even commanding the boss of hell. Suchin recalls this hotel as a birthplace of the powerful. Perhaps Skull Crusher's strength stems from something that will unfold here. Gelling watches him. Suchin resolves to seize any opportunity that arises in this hotel. Later, Gankang took Duanya to meet a man named Mr. Sun. She asked what he wanted to discuss with her. Mr. Sun expressed his eagerness to meet the wonderful Miss Duan and offered her a drink. Duanya noticed that there was something off about the glass, suspecting it contained a drug. Meanwhile, Suchan remembered a past life where he had hidden in a basement with Jang, barely surviving. He never thought that in this life he would kick her, and she would still follow him. But this moment was ripe for revenge. He observed the pool where the two brothers were about to take a dip, remarking on the strange heat of the night, but noting it was worth it since the girls would be in bikinis. The brothers appeared and gazed at the moon, noting its brightness, almost as if it were the sun. At that moment, Wang declared his love for her, while Suchan, in another room, mused that their love was on the verge of exploding. He stands on the balcony and welcomes the apocalypse. The moon trembles, casting a red aura across the sky. Outside, people feel a strange heat on their skin. It burns. They run. Back to the hotel, shouting about the searing moonlight. Inside, confusion reigns. It is night, yet bright as day. 3 of them rush in, their skin already red, desperate for relief. They spot an aquarium, knock it over, and plunge in to cool their burning flesh. The hotel staff, bewildered, ask about Dahai's brother. Wang recalls his brother, who now stumbles in, skin charred and burning. In another room, Mr. Sun questions Duanya's reluctance to drink. Gankang suggests they join the banquet. Mr. Sun, holding a glass of wine, declares that in this city no one can refuse the wine he offers. Duanya's anger flared as she thought about Gankang. He was so desperate to climb the social ladder that he handed her over to Mr. Sun. She knew Son Debio well, an untouchable force in Shanggu, a man who had wronged many women. Now, she was his target. She was certain there. Was something off about the wine, so she couldn't drink it. But what could she do? Just then, the moon began to blaze, casting a fiery glow on the three of them. They drew the curtain, bewildered by the phenomenon. Mr. Sun suggested they go downstairs to understand what was happening. Duanya felt a wave of relief, seizing the chance to escape the predicament. In the lobby, Sinu was trying to keep everyone calm, saying the rescue teams must be coming. Gankang asked one of his men what was happening. The man explained that the moon had suddenly turned red and the temperature outside had shot up by over 70 degrees. The news was reporting that many people were already injured and burned. Mr. Sun called the minister, asking for someone to come pick him up. Later, he told Gan Kong that they were having problems and wouldn't be able to make it. Meanwhile, Dahai was in agony, his skin burned. People tried applying burn ointments, but it wasn't enough. He needed to get to a hospital, but with the heat outside, it was impossible. He said he'd call a friend to pick him up. The friend answered, saying he was in the middle of nowhere but would come. As soon as he left the garage, he saw it was too hot and got confused. The heat was so intense that the tires burst. He got out of the car, called his friend to say he'd be delayed, then ran away. The sole of his shoe melted and he slipped, crashing to the ground. As he looked sideways, he saw another person lying there, already a dry corpse. Panic seized him, and he tried to get up, not realizing that half of his face was already scorched onto the asphalt. His scream on the phone startled everyone in the hotel. Meanwhile, our protagonist slept soundly in his room, where the temperature was controlled. Government announcements blared about the intense heat emitted by the moon, with temperatures soaring over 75 degrees and the ground reaching over 100. Hundreds had already perished. The warning urged everyone to stay indoors to avoid severe burns and respiratory issues. Suddenly, a power plant exploded due to the excessive heat, cutting off some communications. Dahai said he had lost contact with his friends. In the only room left in the hotel, Jang and Lena complained about staying with a bunch of men. Then, the power went out, and with it, the air conditioning failed. Everyone began stripping off their shirts, desperate from the heat. Jang remembered that Suchan's room had a pool. Meanwhile, our protagonist swam peacefully, oblivious to the chaos. He knew the power would go out. The explosion at the power plant assured that. That's why he chose this room with a pool, vertical air conditioners, and large batteries. Still, he missed having some ice. He sat on the sofa. It was comfortable. Hunger gnawed at him, so he set a banquet on the table. It was the first day of the apocalypse, and he needed a small breakfast. He wondered when Go-chan would get a chance to gain powers. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. They knew he was inside. With his teleportation ability and careful preparations, he felt no fear. He decided to open the door. As it swung open, a cold breeze flowed out. Everyone outside felt an indescribable relief. They wondered why it felt so pleasant inside, why he had air conditioning. Suchan asked if they needed anything. Wong pointed out his ice, pool, food, and electricity. Lena and Zhang shouted, demanding how he dared to live in luxury while they burned outside all day. They told him to leave the room. Dahai declared it was time to pay back what he owed. He should hand over the room. But as Dahai stepped inside, a shot rang out. Dahai clutched his stomach, shocked by the wound. Suchan warned him. One more step and he'd die. Fear gripped everyone now. He got what he wanted. But another shot rang out in the room. Fear gripped everyone as Dahai crumpled to the ground, a fresh wound in his leg. Suchan pointed outside, declaring that anyone who wished to die could stay put. He gave them 3 seconds. If they were in his line of sight, they'd meet their end. Meanwhile, Gankang questioned Sinu about how such a large hotel could lack food. She apologized, explaining they'd recently hosted a banquet for over 1,000 guests, and the next shipment was due today. Mr. Sun, drenched from pouring water over himself, demanded she bring all available food and water immediately. Families were outraged at the waste, and chaos erupted in the lobby. Just then, Day staggered in, injured, and everyone warned that Suchin had shot someone. Seeing the wound, Gonkong mused that Suchin's room must have electricity, air conditioning, and even a pool. People crowded around her, questioning her honesty. She insisted it was true he had ice cubes and plenty of food. Convinced, everyone decided to head to his room. Meanwhile, Gawang sent one of his men to investigate. When Suchin opened the door, the fresh, cool air felt like paradise. The desperate crowd outside begged him to show kindness and care for the elderly. The fat little boy saw the fried chicken and lunged for it, but he was stopped short by a boot to the stomach, sending him sprawling. Suchan told the parents to control their kids, or he would. Outraged, people shouted that he was a killer and unfit to stay in that room. As they started to crowd in, Suchan pulled a gun and shot a man in the back. The man fell. Suchan warned them that he may be alone, but each of them had only one life. He knows the danger, but he has his space magic and can escape at any moment. Downstairs, Wang is furious. His brother lies dead, 2 gunshot wounds marking his body. The crowd tossed him out like refuse, already decaying. Wang's voice is a low growl, filled with rage. They must kill that damn Suchin. On Suchin's door, Jang and Lena stood, slick with sweat from the heat. They called out, asking to be let inside. They were sure he wouldn't have the courage to shoot them. They professed their love for him, and their certainty that he loved them too. They promised him a night of adventure, 2 against 1, if he would only let them in. Suchan, hearing their eagerness to join forces, finally relented. He opened the door. They all felt a rush of happiness, mingled with disbelief. Wang stepped between them, striking both girls. He growled that he would kill him. Just then, Suchin landed a punch on Wang's face. Wang staggered, crashing into both girls, and they all fell hard to the ground. Stang Wayne lay there, bloodied and beaten. The others hesitated at the door, fear keeping them back. Suchin urged them to leave. They did. Wang chuckled, saying he was just toying with them, but warned that if anyone dared to challenge him, his artillery robot would take care of it in no time. Tanks sat outside the hotel. People thought they were a rescue team. They left, armed and dressed in protective gear as they entered the building. They ask for a man named Liu Singo. He steps forward. They tell him to put on the insulation suit and come with them. Everyone else wants to be rescued together, but the soldier tells them to stay calm. The operation will happen tonight at midnight in Silicon Valley Square. The people cheer, believing the government has not forsaken them. Mr. Sun offers $1 billion to be taken now, but a soldier holds him back, warning him not to disrupt the mission. Mr. Sun commanded Gan Kang, but the weight of the guns aimed at him made action impossible. In that moment, Jang seized one of the soldiers and said there was a killer in the room above. Lena added that he had already taken many lives and would soon finish off everyone in the hotel. They had to save those trapped inside. A soldier named Xiao Fang decided to investigate. His friend warned him to be cautious, to think before acting. Xiao Fang took his weapon and ascended the stairs. Jang thought it was an ideal situation. Once this man dealt with Suchan, she would claim the rune for herself. Xiao Fang moved carefully down the hallway, scanning every corner until he spotted a camera watching him. Just then, Suchan flung open the door and hurled a flashbang. Before he could react, it detonated, stunning him. A cloud of sleeping gas settled around his feet, and as he crouched to avoid it, Sukin emerged from the shadows and struck him on the head. After a while, he woke up in his room and didn't understand what happened or why it was so cold. Suchan told him, "Your name is Luke Xiao Fang. You are a captain in the Special Forces. Now that you are awake, let's talk." Xiao Fang looked at the ice around him and asked, "What happened? Who is he? Where did he get these grenades and weapons?" Suchan said he was just an ordinary man who just graduated, and he got these weapons when he was traveling in the Middle East. Suchan asked if the government had set the rescue points for the next morning. Xiao Fang was taken aback that he already knew. Suchan felt a familiar weight settle on him. It was all the same as before. He warned Xiao Fang that even though the night was colder, people could not endure more than 10 minutes outside. Most would perish just trying to reach the rescue point. Xiao Fang replied that they had no choice. Many were starving in their homes, unable to bear the heat any longer. Their only hope lay in reaching the rescue point. Modifying the vehicles was too difficult, and there was no time to save everyone, trapped indoors. Perhaps if they covered themselves with blankets, they might stand a chance. Suchan placed his hand on Xiao Fang's shoulder, gun pointed steady. Xiao Fang urged him to calm down, explaining he only wanted to warn everyone to grab blankets. With a swift motion, Suchan cut the rope, declaring himself free. He respected the act of saving lives, but warned Xiao Fang not to return. Xiao Fang questioned Suchan's fear of retaliation, but Suchan simply revealed a camera equipped with facial recognition and an automatic machine gun. When Xiao Fang asked where he got it, Suchan replied, "The Middle East." Then he told him it was best he left. The room felt heavy with tension. Xiao Fang, weary of the whole mess, decided to leave for the tank. Mr. Sun simmered with anger, frustrated that even a soldier couldn't handle the situation. He turned to Gan, blaming him for their troubles. Gan's henchmen wondered aloud if they would truly let this man walk away without consequences. Gan explained that they needed to stay connected for future dealings and that acting rashly would only bring danger. Just then, Suchan entered, challenging their desire for order amid chaos. The henchmen bristled at Suchan's words, but Gan urged them to keep their cool and asked about Suchan's purpose. Suchan held up a bucket of ice, stating he was there to negotiate. One of the henchmen suggested they should just eliminate that kid and take everything he owned right then and there. Suchan aimed the gun at the man, who quickly abandoned his plans. Gan suggested they discuss business, and Suchan handed over the edible ice. They ate it, and its flavor impressed them both, but Gan, eyeing Suchan with greed, plotted to kill him for everything he possessed. Just then, Mr. Sun kicked Gan in the gut, calling him a liar for hiding the ice cubes. He stepped on him, threatening death if anything else was concealed. Gan was unraveling, and Mr. Sun noticed Duanya sitting quietly. She was a modest girl, suffering in the heat while others stripped down, yet she remained unchanged. Frustrated, he grabbed her arm, tired of her attitude and wanting to impose his will. Duanya slapped him, calling him a bastard, but without warning, Mr. Sun tore her shirt. He says he will take advantage of her disobedience first, and then everyone will do what they want. She falls to the ground, scared, and he says she is sweating profusely, and he is only doing her a favor until Gan appears behind him and says enough of this. Sun turns to say something, but Gan hits him in the neck with his closed hand, instantly breaking his hand. He falls to the ground dead, and Gan says Suchan is actually right. This place is already chaos, and people like him have to die with it. He warned them that this place belonged to him now. Those who refused would either go to the rescue point or die here. Upstairs, Suchan watched, noting that his words had struck a chord. Gan had been the boss here once before. They were merely quickening the process. With that, they were thrown out. Gan began to drink the ice Suchan had given him, while Jang and Lena pleaded for a taste, promising to do anything he asked. He tossed some to them, saying they could have it, but they had to obey his every command. One of his men asked if they were not heading to the rescue point, and Gan replied that it was too far. At midnight, Lena and Yang moved to leave, wrapped in blankets. They thought they could slip away, but the henchman appeared and stripped them of their cover. Yang challenged him, but the henchman only warned. that with the ice gone, they were stuck with him for a while. Those who defied Gon had paid a price for not having supplies to reach safety. The ground was hotter than they expected, even at this hour. They tried to shield their feet with a piece of wood, but walking became a struggle. One of them stumbled, and in an instant their hand and face met the scorching earth, leaving only one to bear witness to the horror of it all. Dahai and Mr. Sun lay on the ground, their bodies still smoldering. From the balcony, Suchin watched. Their eyes opened, red as fire. He remembered the walk from another life, when he had almost met his end. Yang and Lena say they'll do whatever he wants. But why not go to the room? The henchman says they're being shy. There's no need to hide. The glass broke. The two heavy men, scarred and burned, came after them, their eyes wild. Wang thought they were zombies. He asked Gon if a bite would change them too. Gon, with a hard look, said they needed answers. Then he seized Wang by the neck and tossed him to the creatures. Wang's back sizzles where the creatures touch him. Suchan appears, blade in hand, urging everyone to step aside. The henchman gapes, unable to fathom why Suchan would confront these beasts. Gan, however, is eager, convinced that once Suchan dispatches the two, they'll turn on him next and seize everything he has. Suchan understands that bodies exposed to heat rise again, but they are not infected with any virus. They are more like demons of drought. These demons, unlike others, carry fragments of their former lives. Suchan remains motionless as Mr. Sun brushes past him, heading for Gon, the man who had ended his life. But Dahai, killed by Suchan, lunges at him with fury. However, upon seeing this situation, he is sure that Gon's chance to awaken some power is by killing Mr. Sun. So if he goes in his direction, he cut off his chance of a purple crystal coming out of his body, and this is a type of core that can evolve into a human body. He grabs the crystal and jumps back and pushes high towards everyone and goes up the stairs and tells them about it. Have a good time. He grabs Gon Wang, who was lying on the floor again, and throws him towards the creature in his room. Suchan says that these crystals are very rare. He puts them in a cup and drinks them because this is the absorption method through which the body extracts energy. The crystal turns and strengthens itself. His eyes turn red, and he starts screaming while all these clothes burn, so he falls to the ground on top of a block of ice, while in the hallway, the demon of drought has finished. All their water now that Lena wants to escape with nothing to drink or eat. But her henchman stops her saying she won't escape at that moment. Lena says they should use Jang. She is Su Chen's fiancé, and if they throw her at the door, that means she won't escape. Sure, he'll open it and then they can try to steal the goods from him. The henchmen say it's a great idea and Yang says it will help, but she wants to eat meat first. The henchmen say there's no meat since the refrigerators are turned off days later. Gan looks at her and asks if she wants meat. He has a solution. They tie up Lena and warn her that if she wants to, she will have to do it. Jang is shocked and asks if he meant that they would eat her flesh while Lena. Trembling, Jang turns to her and begs Lena, saying, "What are you doing? You won't do that, right?" But Jang confronts her and says that she just betrayed her by talking about being Suchan's wife since she did that and that she deserves it. Then he hits her 3 times. Even Gon and his followers are afraid to see how she did it without hesitation. Jang becomes crazy, saying that when she is full, she will go up and drink Suchan's blood. The followers look at Gon and ask them if they really will do that. He says to call the boss quickly, or else they will dry up while he is in the room. Suchan jumps with his new body, because not only is it more resistant to heat, but it is also more flexible and strong. At that moment, when Duanya sees the door standing at the entrance, she thinks that it has become crazy in there, and she has no chance of surviving if she stays there. So she has to try her luck, and use what's left of her worth to get something here. At that moment, Suchan opens the door naked, and she gets scared and screams. He apologizes, saying it was unintentional and was excited about some news in the room. Then he tells her that even though he has resources, They are limited. He decides that they just met and he can't accept her just because she's pretty. He remembers that in her past life, she was a very smart woman. In addition, she had a cooperative relationship with Kong. However, although he thought about having her around, the atmosphere now seems strange. Duanya then says to him that she is not just a cook, she is also a doctor. She has been working as a surgeon for 3 years. She thinks that his room is very well equipped. Not only there is electricity, but also there is ice and food. She needs to demonstrate that it is worth staying here on the couch, such a person admits. That becoming a doctor is indeed a good offer, however, since she knows that resources are extremely scarce and it is unclear whether they will live to see tomorrow. Feeling insecure after hearing this, she says that until he kicks her out of the room, after hearing this proposal, he will do whatever he wants. Such a person immediately declares that this is her new home. She feels awkward, thinking that she said it a little rudely and unintentionally. Such a person warns her that her only choice is to behave well. If he finds out that she is planning something behind his back, their relationship will end. Duanya assures him that she understands and never doubts his ways and determination. Suchan then suggests that she can show her determination by taking off her clothes. She feels embarrassed and asks him if he would like to like the video first, as the chapter is over. If you enjoyed it, please click the little bell icon.